Hi, everybody. It's Meteorologist Joe Chaffee here on this Thursday, November the 15th, 2018. And by standards for the middle of November, for my particular area where we're putting down a half a foot of snow so far in some places, this certainly qualifies as a snowstorm. And it's been an absolutely horrific evening commute around the New York City, New Jersey, actually all of New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, on into the Hudson Valley, southern New England, and Long Island. And we're still waiting to see if that rain-snow line is going to come in. And thank you, those of you who are on the chat board. I'm seeing your snow reports. I can't tell you how helpful they have been. And it was amazing, too, that this snow area extended. You know, the clue to all of this was this morning. When at 7 this morning, I was watching CNBC this morning, and they pulled a live shot of the White House with heavy snow coming down in Washington, D.C. That was really a clue, a big clue, as to what was going on. And the weather models, the NAM, in my opinion, hit the home run with this. But more importantly, this was a day where young forecasters and even older forecasters who should have done an old-fashioned sit down and plot a map, because that would have really told you the story about what was going on. And in the end, it was sort of playing behind the eight ball with all of this. When winter storm warnings went up about 1 o'clock this afternoon before the snow started, it became very evident with what was going on the radar that this was not going to be a quick burst of snow and a change to rain. Carmela Yakova, thank you very much for hitting a super chat tonight. Really, really appreciate it. I'm going to try and do a couple of things tonight on the fly. I'm going to get Addison Green and Brittany Bohr, two of my colleagues. We're going to Skype them in, hopefully. Keep your fingers crossed that I can get the darn thing to work right. I'm going to Skype them in and then bring them back in here into the studio. So it's still snowing here outside where we are. So I figured get them outside. We'll see how it is coming down, talk to them a little bit, and then get them out of the cold and bring them inside. Just want to also say, for those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. We live stream here every night, and sometimes we do it twice a day, depending on the weather conditions. So do subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is absolutely free. And this way you can set yourself up with notifications to come on board when we do these streams. And do, by the way, please jump in on the chat like the Warrior just did. Hello from Massachusetts. Where in Mass are you? Because if you're in Western or in Central Mass, you might do pretty well with this. The other thing I just want to mention really quick, too, I'm going to put up a link to my free weather app that is on Google Play. So if you have an Android device, you can download this for free. And I do, my focus of attention is basically northern New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, and southern Connecticut, and the Hudson Valley. So if you're in that zone, if you're a regular on my website, meteorologistjoechaffee.com, this will really work quite well, and you can use it in conjunction with everything else that I got going on. So the link is up there, and if you're watching this on a replay, the link will show up on the live stream from time to time. Mon Hébert, I hope I said that right. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for the kind words. And it is cold in Atlanta. My daughter and son-in-law live in Atlanta, and they've already expressed that to me. Iron Mine, you got to see in the salt spreaders and the plows out. Shelly Man Studios, thought snow before Thanksgiving. Hey, this is really rare. I mean, when you think about it, you see something like this once every 10 years or so. And usually when you see it more toward the end of November than in the beginning. But yeah, definitely a big bonus. And maybe it's a clue for the kind of winter we're going to have. We'll see. Ryan Ford, 6 inches in eastern Morris County. This was a good forecasting experience. And hey, by the way, I'm right out on up front about this. Trying to play catch up here and watching all this stuff last night that was going on with the models and also this morning. Also, I was a bit behind the curve, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's the first one of the season, which is always very, very difficult to forecast. But there's a natural tendency now for forecasters to kind of shy away from what's happening in front of them, because we actually, we have become so model dependent, and it's, frankly, it works against us because you're seeing what's going on, and your training and your experience is telling you one thing, and the models might be telling you something similar or quite possibly something else, and so you got to pay attention. And I'm going to give you a good example of this, and I'm going to start off with the map here. I'm going to bring up the surface map from this afternoon, and hopefully the newest one is up. This is a great tool. If you go to the Weather Prediction Center's website, this is an interactive surface map that we have and that they have, and you can zoom in everywhere, and also you can go back to 1985 to pull up day maps from every day. So we can now, when Joe Rayo is on and he's talking about, he brings up storms from the past, we could actually bring them up on the screen. But this is what the surface map looked like at 1 o'clock this afternoon. You had low pressure just to the northeast of Wilmington, with the warm sector just off the Carolinas. If we go really close, you can see some of these temperatures here along the Carolina coast in the low 70s with dew points in the 70s. That's warm tropical air that was surging northward. North and west of there, where it's raining, you've got temperatures in the 50s, 40s, and 30s. Quite the ice storm that happened in the mountains of western Virginia and in eastern West Virginia, as Johnny Quest, I thought I saw him up there earlier. He will certainly attest to. But the big factor in all of this today was up in New England, in Maine. This big high that moved off just into western Maine, with another high center plotted just east of the coast, and it's basically not getting out of the way fast enough. And you'll notice how the isobars kind of bend here in eastern Pennsylvania and bend down into south central PA and into Virginia and West Virginia. That is cold air that's damming southward. That high is just basically pressing down southwestward, and when that happens, cold air winds up damming east of the Appalachians, and this really created what happened today. Now we can look at the new map. This is from 4 o'clock this afternoon. That high is still there. It is holding on. Warm air is trying to come up the coast, but it's fighting that big high that you see here up to the north. And in fact, when we look at the weather observations here close up, in southeastern New York and in much of northern New Jersey, temperatures are still in the 20s. It's actually gone a little bit above freezing over Long Island, and we're seeing temperatures now rising in the southern half of New Jersey, where it's changed over to rain, and readings there are in the 40s. So we're going to just kind of have to be a little patient here with regards to when this changeover is going to occur. The NAM has been really the big winner today with this, because it has, and the European also, by the way, which was, the European was telegraphing that this was going to be a problem. And again, the NAM, I think, overall, front and center, was the best in showing that high. Initially, it wasn't. Initially, the NAM wanted to rush the high out, but once it caught on to the fact that the high was going to hold more, it gradually grew colder, colder, and colder, and that's what happened today. That moisture came into that cold air. Those darker blues, you see the very heavy snow. Now, this is what the NAM says it's going to look like at 8 o'clock tonight. So by then, the process of the changeover to rain should be taking place on Long Island as we speak. So some of my Long Island folks might be able to verify that on the chat board tonight. And then going to push that rain snow line further north. By 11 o'clock, it's up just along or north of Route 84. So we're going to run into the question in the areas inland in northern New Jersey and the Hudson Valley, interior Connecticut, north of Route 15, and of course all of northeastern Pennsylvania. Are we going to see those temperatures climb up above the freezing mark? And I think many areas will not. And you're going to wind up with a serious icing situation here. The low center is right along the Delaware coast. The pressure gradient is going to tighten up. So we're probably going to have wind gusts along the coast of 50 miles an hour or more for the Jersey coast and the south shore of Long Island, and that low is going to move on out to the northeast. Ready to go?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Addison's calling you.
What's that?
Addison was trying to call you.
Oh, I'm going to call him.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to call him right now.
All
All right, so we're going to try and get. I'm going to get my colleagues, Brittany Borer and Addison Green. So let's get me back up here full screen. So bear with me, just to get at least get a little bit of an outside view. And you know, when it snows, you want to see it. I know I do. So hang on one second. This is just going to take me a moment to do. And okay, so meanwhile, I appreciate greatly that those that you've been putting up your snowfall totals. As I said, those are really helpful to me when trying to figure out all the different kind of microclimates that we've got out in this area. And it's it's hard. It's so difficult to try and get the snow accumulation forecast right for every single point, but we certainly make an effort of it. And Addison, are you with us? All right, hang on, guy. I was getting the volume up. I'm setting you up live.
Hello?
There you go. Awesome.
Hello?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hold on. Just trying to get the camera to work. Can you see?
I see you fine.
There we go.
All right, you're all ready?
Yeah.
All right, so hang on. I'm going to bring you up to the up here, and we hear you well. So, folks, this is my colleague Addison Green, and he's outside with my colleague Brittany Borer. Boy, you know, I got to tell you, it's been so long since it's been this cold. It's cold outside with those temperatures. You know, where we are, folks, it's sitting at about 25 or 6. And we're not that far north of New York City. That just shows you how big the temperature the big temperature differences.
And the wind chill, Joe, I just checked, is about 16 degrees.
Oh, nice.
Feels it out here. I mean, it is just stinging my hands. I did gloves out.
Well, I know, because when I went out earlier today and I did a live with our other colleague Jeffrey Banson. It didn't take me long to just kind of say, hey Jeffrey, I'm freezing. I'm going back inside because my fingers were blue. Can you get by chance? Can you flip the phone around, show everybody how hard it's snowing?
Oh, yes, we can indeed. Hold on 1 second.
Are you inside or outside?
We're outside by the loading dock.
Oh, you went to the loading dock. All right, go on. Give him the shot. I thought maybe you went out in the front in the parking lot.
Well, there's lots of traffic out here.
There we go. Hold on. There he is. Okay.
How much is on the ground outside? Now we're in Harrison, New York, by the way, just so you know. We're in Harrison, New York, which is not actually White Plains Airport is in Harrison, and it's in a bit of a cold spot. It's not actually near the downtown. What'd you measure? 4?
That's about 3 1/4. On the grass, it's about 6.
All right, so let's about 4 though. You think is a pretty good, probably about 4 everywhere.
Yeah, definitely so. And also that you can look over here towards the roadways. That it's just like packed powder with a little slush mixed in as well.
All right.
Here, what sounds like possibly changing over to sleet, I feel definitely a little more stinging with the pellets coming down. In fact, they're bouncing off my jacket right now. These little like sleet pellets, droplet pellets. So we might be seeing that rain snow line push.
You might be seeing what, the rain snow line?
Yeah, possibly pushing on in closer towards us. I'm not sure. I can't see from here, but you can see the.
I still see flakes. The roads are completely snow covered, clearly.
Yeah.
All right, so
there's a little bit of an icy layer right there at the surface, which is what temperature is just hanging around the freezing point. A little bit of a touch of melting, and then you're getting that adhesion, and then you're getting a chance for it to accumulate. But yeah, definitely an icy coating at the bottom, and you can see a lot of brake lights over there in the distance.
Right.
Now I also see a couple of hazard lights. So some cars are having difficulty making up even some of the smallest hills.
That's not a steep incline.
By the way, you can see the how bad the traffic is in the distance. Is that 287?
Yeah, that's the on ramp to 287 right there.
Okay, so if the on-ramp to 287 is backed up where nobody's moving, and that usually isn't a place where you get a backup, the
Yeah.
287 must be at a crawl,
Yeah.
at least as of 622.
You can see a couple of vehicles right there stuck going uphill. It's causing all the traffic jam in the distance. This is right outside our studios in Rybrook. And a couple of horn siren going off. A couple of plows working the distance.
All right, so let me ask you a meteorological question, and then you guys can come inside and join me for a little bit and warm up.
Sure.
Okay, so what did today, from the standpoint of forecasting? Okay, and I'm very upfront and honest about when we do this sort of stuff, and I'm not afraid to when it doesn't quite come out the way I would like it to. I don't blame I don't necessarily say it's the fault of the precipitation coming down rather than mine. Not that I'm casting aspersions, but this was a very, very difficult forecast for days.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of curious from both of you what stood out in terms of the forecast of your forecast or what you were thinking that didn't maybe go quite as right as you thought it was going to.
I think was a big part of
I'm sorry, Brittany, you cut out a bit. Say that again.
I think timing for me.
Okay.
Timing of impact. I think it would occur a little bit later in the morning. I know snow started in New Jersey around 8-9 o'clock.
But it didn't get up here till after 2.
Yeah.
Right. And then the timing of the changeover, it's still snowing in some places. We thought that there would be a lot of change, so that adding to the snow accumulation.
All right, hang on 1 second, guys.
Yep.
No, thanks. Okay, so somebody was taking a dinner order. Okay.
Oh, we'll be right in for that.
All right. Addison, did it shock you all the cold air and the importance of it?
I think definitely so. The cold air, especially the first storm of the season, is always going to be the most trickiest. But just understanding the thickness of the cold air, how much was around, and then how much this system was able to pull it down towards the coast.
Well, it was, for both of you, I mean, it was really the high to the north, that driving this all the way along. The fact that high just refused to get out of the way was and still is very important, and it's going to be a huge factor tonight for inland areas, which are going to have a real tough time getting above 32.
Yeah.
All right, so look, come inside.
Yep.
Go and if you're gonna make a dinner order, go and run into to Mark and make a dinner order, and then come into the studio, both of you, and we'll talk some more.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Addison Green and Brittany Bohr, two of my colleagues. This again a big forecast challenge. As we all have struggled with these things, and this is why it's. And I tell the young forecasters this all the time. You got to sit down. You want to really get some good experience. Pull up surface observations and just plot a map. That really is how you learn. Joe Rayo will say this many times, as will I. When we used to hand plot these things, and now they're computer plotted. But when you hand plot it, you really get a feel for what's happening, and make sure you cultivate your tools. Work with the models that that you feel work for you best. Okay, and don't pay any attention to anybody that criticizes you with regards to what models you're using or what techniques you're using. What works is you use what works. Now here's that surface map again. This is the new one at 4 o'clock. That strong high still sitting in Maine. You see how these isobars, again, how they're kind of bent there in a sideways V shape or maybe a gentle U shape pushing down. This is, again, cold air damming. And if you look, the wind, would be, in theory, should be parallel to the isobars, but because of friction and a few other factors, it usually runs at almost a 90-degree angle. And if you look at the wind bars here, even though the isobar says that the wind should be east-southeast, they're turned into the low pressure to the south, so the wind bars are actually northeast. And the trajectory of that wind is over land. You see how the barbs are pointed up toward the land in New England. You're not getting a fetch off the water. You are getting that off the water fetch now in New Jersey and down southward, down into Delaware and the Delmarva Peninsula and over in through Maryland and so on. But from just south of the South Shore of Long Island on northward, you're getting that fetch is still coming in off the land, and that is, of course, slowing down the warm-up and bringing the changeover to a crawl. This is the map, by the way, tomorrow morning on the NAM. Let me just review it again so you can see. This is 7 p.m. So this is what it's supposed to be It's supposed to look like in 33 minutes, with that dark blue snow still along the coast of Long Island and in New Jersey between 78 and 195. Then by the time we get to 9 o'clock and by 10 o'clock, except the far northwest corner of Jersey and northeast corner of PA, it's sleet and or freezing rain here, and it's rain across Long Island and into southern New Jersey. Now we are at 10 p.m. and that rain snow line is creeping northward toward Route 84, and finally by the time we get to 1 a.m., the rain snow line is moving up to I-90. But the rain sleet line and the freezing rain and rain line is into north and west of New York City, but still up in the Hudson Valley. There could be significant icing through this, make no mistake about it. The snow amounts, by the way, since it seems like we could actually might want to use the 10-to-1 ratio here now because of the fact that everything that's fallen has been sticking, and you've got temperatures in the 20s, so we really don't have to worry about any melting of any kind. These are the 10-to-1 amounts on the NAM model, with some numbers approaching 10, 11 inches. And you know what? In some elevated areas, I would not at all be surprised to see that. The HRRR, also somewhat bullish, at least through 1 a.m., but one of the things I noticed right off the bat with the HRRR tonight was that finally it's kind of caught up, but the run before this one, an hour ago, had the radar profile just wrong, and wrong in terms of where the rain snow line was going to be. But it seems now that it is caught up to the NAM's idea with 1 extra hour, and then pushes on and up to the northeast. In terms of the heavier precip, the steadier, heavier precip, it looks like most of it may be done, though, by the time we get to 2 or 3 a.m., as it becomes a little more scattered after that. And then, of course, finally, the low pulls away. I'm going to go to the GFS, which the GFS, if anything, was just totally useless as far as where the rain snow line was going to be through all of this. It totally missed all the snow in New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania, down into Washington, D.C., Baltimore, over Long Island to New York City. It never had the rain snow line far enough south. So the GFS was a big fail from that respect. I think the European was a winner with respect to with the job it did, and probably one of the few models that actually was forecasting 2 to 4 inch amounts for New York City, which is going to be, I'm sure that's probably what they got in the city. No, so seeing that it had snowed, they were getting heavy snow for a couple of hours. So the longer range on this tonight, and I'll bring up the upper air and we'll show you the long range. I'm going to be curious to see how it takes us. I'm looking at this for the first time. The run after run after run, telegraphing a very blocky nature to the pattern, and if on the upper, not quite the upper center, is a big, strong Scandinavian high that's building westward toward eastern Greenland and Iceland. We've got another deep trough coming into the east early next week, and that should bring a shot of cold air for Thanksgiving. And then that lifts out, and there's still more troughing in the east, so it really is not going to be able to get that warm next week at all. In fact, the middle part of next week will be quite cold in the northeast. And then that lifts out, and it looks like this run kind of went a bit of a different way, but it still eventually gets to this sort of very blocky look that is indicated throughout much of Canada and on up into the Arctic regions. You have higher than normal pressures on either side, and the jet stream displaced well to the south. So my colleagues here have joined me. So let me make the screen a little bit wider. And hang on one second. Then we got a little while. So Brittany.
Yes.
Brittany Bohr, you have a let's get the shameless self promotions out right off the bat. Don't worry, I didn't hide you guys. I just said to.
You just hit us.
Right.
Thanks.
I'm not.
Crop that.
Addison, we're cropping you down. Can you get a little closer? There you go. So, Brittany, your opportunity to my audience. You can just tell them a little bit about yourself and your website and your future YouTube channel.
Thanks, Joe. So I am trying to launch my own YouTube channel. That was a great toss.
I didn't mean a word of it, but go on.
I just launched a YouTube channel, so I'm going to be doing video updates. I'll be doing the live videos on YouTube. I have my demo reel up there, so just you can kind of see some of my work.
And your channel is going to be called?
Meteorologist Brittany Borer.
Borer.
That is correct.
All right, so you're probably going to have this up any day now.
I mean, it's up. It's live.
Oh, okay, great. So
Yeah.
when you're done here, guys, go and take a look. YouTube search Brittany Borer, and you'll subscribe to her channel as well. And your website is?
WXBRIT.com. WXBrit.
WXBrit.com. Okay, I'm going to put it up on the chat board here.
Wonderful.
WXBrit.com.
Yeah.
Okay. And, okay, so, Addison,
Yes, sir.
how are you feeling today?
All right, hanging in there. It's been a long day, but we're doing pretty good. Meteorologist Addison Green here, and I'm on Instagram, Addison Green WX, as well as Facebook and Twitter by the same handle, Addison Green WX. And then just did a video earlier on today. I try and do an Instagram video once a day, considering that's where all the cool kids are, trying to show what's going on out and about. Gotta get those stories trending. And definitely this storm system, guys, I believe has put a lot of meteorologists across the area kind of just like scratching heads like, what?
Well, look, this morning, in a conversation that I was involved with, we won't mention the person's name, and even if we did, it wouldn't matter because they're asleep right now, so they wouldn't be watching.
That narrows it down.
Well, it does. But, one of the things that struck me last night, and yesterday, last night, and this morning, on the NAM model was the fact that it gave an inch of liquid in a 6-hour time frame with borderline temperatures and strong vertical motions. And anytime you see that, it's almost, I would say, 95 or even 99% of the time, the error is that the model is going to be too warm. In other words, that if you're going to have to make a choice here between is it just warm enough for rain or not warm enough, or is it cold enough for snow? Most of the time, almost all of the time, the snow part is going to win out. The dynamic cooling just has a really big impact. And when you see all those factors going together, you want to lean in that direction. But it's a tough part. The tough part of it is to kind of translate it into a number in terms of snow accumulations. And I think we all had that problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the cold air was just, a little too relentless, so to speak, because we thought that we were going to get the high pressure to leave us, the warming to push up northward a little sooner rather than later, and it's not quite the case. And I'm sure a lot of people that are out in the roadways can agree to that.
John Zielinski lives in MNTP, Pennsylvania. Okay, I'm trying to figure that out.
Something
Mountaintop.
turnpike.
That was a mountaintop. John, I'm not sure what MNTP is, so just let us know. 25 degrees, 8 on the ground, and more than you expected. Yeah, a lot of spots, even in the interior areas, a bit of a home run from the standpoint of the snow amounts. Timothy Veltman, you haven't. You're up in Albany, so you're waiting. It will arrive soon. Scott Briller pointing out the normal high is 54. Look what happens, by the way, guys. we're actually, in terms of the high-low today, you need an anomaly of almost, for example, White Plains I saw was 25. Their high today probably is going to, unless it really shoots up before midnight, will be 35. So their average temperature for the day is 30. You're talking about having temperatures at least 20 or more degrees below normal to have to produce this event, and this is why snow events in November are rare. Clearly. Let's see. I'm just getting all these comments here. Started about 10 minutes ago up in Albany's way. 6 to 10 for you, I think, is pretty reasonable. William Huber, who's out on Long Island, east of me, 3 inches of snow, and it has started to change over to rain there. We're seeing the indications. Just about 3 inches in East Rockaway for Jason Schaefer. See Eddie Hernandez. Oh, they reopened the GW Bridge.
Yeah, after that messy accident, we posted video up earlier. Multi-car and tractor-trailer mess.
How many cars? Did they say?
Probably
30?
I would say probably.
I heard somebody say 30 cars.
Yeah, I would believe it. Probably 20, 30 vehicles.
Dozens.
Amazing. Still heavy snow in North Jersey. Again, just running through the chat here. I just want to make sure I get all your amounts and your questions. Hey, Joshua Pad making a the Icon and the parallel GFS models. I don't know if you guys were looking, and we were kind of occasionally looking at it over the last couple of days. But it's kind of funny because on certain runs, they actually looked like what happened today, and then they sort of backed off from it. Funny how that happens sometimes. It gives you a clue on one particular run, and then it just sort of disappears, and then you ultimately wind up coming back to that.
Right. I look for consistency with the model runs. That's one thing that I tend to look for. And because, you have those runs that pop up, it may be consistent for a couple runs and then kind of lose that track. So it was very, very tough to call.
What is your model? Here, just closer to you. What is your model of choice?
That's a tough question. Depends on the event.
But, I think that's a reasonable answer. It depends on the event. Some models work better than others, but if you had to pick one
for this particular
any event, just in general, if you had to pick one,
I've been liking her and the
HRRR.
Yeah, and the RPM 4K. They're pretty similar.
Okay.
But they're the mesoscale model, so it's a shorter range of time. It's close to the event.
Right.
For a longer range model, it's a toss-up between the GFS and the Euro. The Euro was pretty spot on with this one, so.
Addison?
Yeah, I would definitely say that I'm leaning more towards for the short-term forecasting, the HRRR, or sometimes I'll go for the NAM, depending upon which model run's coming on in. Long range, I tend to lean more towards the GFS, and then I look at the Euro and see how it differs. But the Euro has been more times than not the leading candidate for being the most accurate. But the GFS has developed a lot of changes over the past several years. So
well, you know what? Not all of them good, by the way.
No, not all of them good. But nonetheless, they're still trying. But yeah, I often look at the Euro and be like, okay, well, what's it say after I look at the GFS first?
What do you think? And Addison, you take this first,
Sure.
and Brittany, you can take this second. I'm a firm believer that while history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. I'm sure everyone is going to look at this, it already is, and asking the question, is this a sign of where we're going this winter? What do you think? Now, I will give you my opinion after you've both given yours.
I just said something to you outside along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I agree with you. I feel that once you get one storm system to come on in, that kind of sets the tone for the public of is this the new norm, or is this how our season's going to be? Judging one season by one storm. I feel like we're going to be entering more still an active pattern like we have been recently, with a couple of storm systems swinging on in. It's a question: are they going to be able to utilize a cold air mass in place when they do come through town? But definitely the pattern has been like this. We've been active for past 2 to 3 weeks, Joe, I would say, getting system after system to swing on through, and it'll probably switch up probably as we get towards Thanksgiving. Probably give it another week or so.
Brittany, your opinion on that?
This could potentially be, kickstarting a pattern, like a ripple effect. You have these shortwave troughs that dig on down, and those interact with those blocking highs. And I think this, this early in the season, seeing 6 to 8 inches of snow and being below average,
Right.
definitely not out of the question that we could see this pattern come up every 10 to 14 days.
Well,
or so.
I'll put a different spin on this because we've actually been in this pattern since the middle of October, and the last 3 or 4 systems actually have been relatively similar. It never repeats exactly. History never repeats exactly, but it does rhyme. The last 3 or 4 systems have been relatively similar with highs to the north, lows going offshore. It's just that each one seems to have, and it would make sense in general, that the air is going to be colder as we go march through the month of October and November. So we're naturally getting colder as it is, and it was just, I guess, a matter of time before something in this pattern would match up where the air would be cold enough, matching up with another low developing to our south with a stalled front along the coast. We keep getting these troughs, setting up in the east. That being said, and my audience knows that I'm not a long-range guy, but given the fact that it seems like we're going to be going into this block, going into some sort of a blocky pattern overall over the next couple of weeks, and in fact, I'll bring them up. Today's teleconnections, they missed yesterday. Sometimes they forget to bring them up, but I'll bring up the teleconnections that from last night's GFS ensemble run, and let's bring in everybody full screen on this. Come on. Oh, wait, why is it not doing that? Oh, I see. I'm not the most dexterous and technically savvy soul in the world, so I appreciate your patience. But take a look. The upper left is that Pacific North America index, ridge in the west, and notice that it is positive, which means that there's going to be a tendency for ridging in the west, and that ridging accelerates and even gets more positive as we get toward the end of the month, crashing starting today. And this probably, by the way, could be one of the reasons why the high held on, was that the North Atlantic Oscillation, or the NAO, or the blocking that goes on in the Northeast Atlantic, was crashing, and that might have held that high in Maine. Even if it only held it longer for a couple of hours, it made all the difference in the world, and kept it from going into a spot that would not be conducive to holding the cold air in the east. But that NAO is crashing strongly negative for the last week of November right into the end of the month. And we've got a negative EPO, which is interesting because that's the one that I like to look at. Very negative EPO, kind of straddles to the neutral line and then goes negative again toward the end of the month. So these three would signal and favor winter weather in the eastern part of the U.S. Now, the question is whether the troughs are going to line up for more snow events or not. And that's the big mystery, because you can have all the teleconnections in the world, and you know what? If the troughs and the ridges are not in exactly the right places, or relatively close to the right places, it doesn't matter.
Timing is key.
As always. So some parting thoughts as we have to wrap it up here for you?
Ladies first.
Stage fright. I'm kidding. I kid. Well, guys, we got through it. The first snow of the season. We made it. Some of us are still in the thick of it, but by tomorrow morning, it'll be okay. And now we're a little bit better prepared going forward, watching all of the different models and taking into account these factors. And it's a learning experience going forward. So that's what I'm taking away from this.
And I definitely, like you said, like these storms coming through, we kind of get maybe complacent, I would say, or maybe kind of like amnesia, so to speak, in terms of what to do with these storm systems. So if you didn't get a chance to get prepared for this storm system this week, good news, you got the weekend around the corner. It's going to be a dry weekend. Black Friday's next weekend, so you have a chance to go buy some supplies at a discount rate. Maybe get those snow tires, perhaps, that you've been postponing getting, and you now wish you had.
Right.
Like one of our engineers. But definitely prepare for the season at hand that's coming our way sooner rather than later, because like Joe was mentioning, only gonna get colder. More storms could come on through, and it could definitely yield more potential impacts like this. Hopefully, we don't go through like we did last March, the March of 4 nor'easters.
Scott Briller, one of my regulars, points out that if you want to use the last 6 Novembers with at least 1 inch of snowfall in New York City, as measured by Central Park, as to what happened in the winters that followed, 3 were above normal and 3 were below normal. So that is totally, it doesn't help. So if you wanted to use the idea of as November goes, so goes the winter, at least for that incredibly small sample set, and that's the problem here. You have for November's, in terms of the number of times it snowed in November, it's a very, very small sample set. We've had 6 events roughly, maybe a few more if you count some places north and west. But basically, it's a 1 in every 8, 9, 10 year event that you get accumulating snow in the month of November. So it doesn't help in terms of in trying to figure out what's going to be like for December, January, and February.
No, because it's hard to do so. Like you said, you're not a long range man. Looking at the long range forecast, that's you might as well throw a dart in the darkness. It's really hard to nail down something like that. That's why you got to look at the short term pattern and just be prepared for the situation ahead. It's winter. It's in New York City area. We know what comes our way every year. Just like Floridians know they have to be prepared for hurricane season.
Right.
When it comes around. So just
and you know what? It's snow melts. And after the first one, the first one's always the hardest one, and we're done. Okay, so real quick, Brittany, they can find you again where?
WXBRIT.com, and that's my social media handles as well, and my new YouTube page, Meteorologist Brittany Borer.
Okay, and Addison, they can find you at?
Addison Green WX. I am on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all by the same handle, and I usually try and update those accounts on a regular basis. And of course, you can always find us middays, noon to 5 on Verizon Fios 1 News, New Jersey, Long Island, and Hudson Valley.
All right, thanks guys for being here. I really appreciate it. Now I'm going to cover you with a graphic, okay? Because now it's my turn. You can either sneak out or wait. But so now it's I know. So it's my turn now for a shameless self-promotion. But for those of you who are in the northern New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, the Hudson Valley, and in southern Connecticut, and you have an Android mobile device, you can download my Joe Stradamus weather app from Google Play. If you just search either Meteorologist Joe Chaffee or my name, Joe Chaffee, and you can see the spelling of that right up there on the screen. The app will come up. My understanding is that the app for iPhones should hopefully be out in the next week or so. Say a little prayer that Apple approves it quickly, and as soon as I have that, I will let you know and give you the link. And I just put the link up on the chat board for those of you who are interested. Also, let me also remind you, if I can find it, but there is the Patreon platform, which was my subscription platform, and you'll not only get forecasts and weather analysis, and you get a lot of weather analysis on the Patreon platform that you don't see anywhere else on my website or anywhere else for that matter. That is a subscription platform, and that's just $2 a month, and it's a great way also to help support my channel and get me a few cigars every once in a while. And the link to that is right here also on the chat. And thank you for those of you who are on the Patreon platform. This was a good test for me, trying to handle all the things I got to handle on a given day, and it seemed to work out well. I was able to keep up with everything. Getting a little old and it's getting a little tough, but I'm going to continue to try. So check out the Patreon platform. If I can, I'll be live streaming on Facebook tonight, probably at around 9:15. But I am alone tonight. Joe Rayo is off for the rest of this week, so it'll be the Joe and Joe show, but with only one Joe. So tune in. That'll be 9:15 on Facebook, and then of course we'll be back to normal with our normal live stream tomorrow on YouTube, probably at 7:30. I think I'll push it back tomorrow night to 7:30. Mirtha Gunter, no ice for you last night, just rain and wind. Okay, good to hear, because you know what? Ice is not something, if you're going to get wintertime precipitation, let it be snow, let it be, sleet if you have to have it, okay. But freezing rain is just, no good. And thankfully, you didn't have it, although I know that there are a lot of folks in interior Virginia and on into West Virginia and extending northward from there had to deal with some pretty serious icing from overnight and today. 4.8 inches, Rich Rothmansky at JFK. Rain and sleet there, good. So that rain-snow line making progress. That's a good thing. And watching 99 Wolves. Messiah will be watching the Ford EcoBoost 200 on FS1. All right. Well, if you can't watch it on live, you can always watch it on the replay. So it's always there in the video library. Okay, you mean on YouTube. Gotcha. 3 to 4 inches in northern Delaware. Brandon Doherty, nice to see you on board. If I didn't get to your comment on the chat, my apologies. But it's time for me to go because I got to hit TV at the top of the hour. Have a great evening. Hopefully we'll see you on Facebook later or on YouTube tomorrow. Or maybe tomorrow morning on one of my daily exclusive Patreon live streams that I usually do in the morning at 9:30. Have a great evening, everybody.